The Township Committee meeting order. John, would you lead us in a pledge of allegiance to the flag, please?
Sure. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by emailing a copy of the notice along with the agenda of this meeting to the Atlantic City or the Press of Atlantic City, Atlantic County Record, Record Journal, and current newspapers stating this meeting would take place at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, April the 6th, 2015, in the municipal building, Mays Landing, New Jersey. Ms. Gatto?
Here.
Mr. Gishard?
present.
Mr. Kurtz?
Here.
Mrs. Link?
Here.
Mayor Silva?
Here. At this time, I'd like to take a moment of silence for private reflection. Okay, we'll adjourn to executive session at the end of the meeting, and if there's any confirmation, we'll come out in public. Item number 3, addition or deletion of late items for consideration tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments to the motion?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor. The item that's on for an addition, I don't see as a late agenda item worthy. It's not emergency. And we've just gotten it tonight and are going to have to make a decision on it. So in the future, I just, again, ask that only emergent items go on the late list. That's my only comment.
I appreciate that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, early public comment on agenda items not listed for public hearings. Michael?
Mr. Mayor, Bob Campbell, 5A and C.
Mr. Mayor, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Bob Campbell, 48 Lewis Drive, Mays Lane, New Jersey. I accidentally left one item off, but I will just briefly address that item, and that is additions. On the additions, authorization to submit a list of projects to South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization Citizen Advisory Committee. As you are aware, we did have Rodney called a meeting this week, just passed, and we discussed a number of items that we wanted to see if the township was interested in applying or going to the Citizens Action Committee of the South Jersey Transportation Planning Group to potentially look for grants, federal grants, and federal highway system money, Transportation Act money, and I would hope that the Township Committee supports that, and we will take it from the CAC and present it forth from us directly to the TAC Committee, the Technical Committee, and to the planning, the head of our planning group for the county and for the state of New Jersey.
Well, we appreciate that, Bob. More than 3/4 of these have already been submitted, but we appreciate your following up on it. They've been in the Assemblyman's
There's a few
office.
things that I think that maybe are new, possibly new things that you might get some help with, particularly on the safety end. I do want to thank your safety officer for the police department. I think he did a great job.
Good.
In preparing this and helping that, so they deserve a lot of credit.
Thank you.
Bob, maybe you can clarify, because now I'm really confused, because this is the late agenda item that we just got tonight.
Okay.
Because it says that these are to be submitted for the Citizen Advisory Committee's input and recommendation for improvement, not the purpose of seeking federal grants. So what are we doing?
Well, the improvements that I think we were looking at, first of all, the police department gave a report to Mr. Gishard. Mr. Gishard presented that to the planning and to the South Jersey Transportation Organization, which included a lot of detrimental effects, of safety effects on Route 50 and Laureldale. And the numerous accidents on Route 50, the numerous
Yes, I'm
deaths.
very well aware.
Very well, you live there, you know what I'm talking about. And so the South Jersey Transportation suggested that we codify that, and we'll put it in a resolution, and at our next meeting, which will be April the 13th, we will approve that. We don't approve or disapprove. What we do is we take the recommendations, whatever they might be, or the requests from the public. Anybody in the public, somebody that lives on Route 50 in Laureldale, can come to our board and say, I want to tell you of a very unsafe situation.
I wasn't aware that we had recommendations for Route 50.
If I, just let me add to this.
Sure.
The 5 items that we've talked about that before. As you said, this is nothing new.
Right.
The reason that after a meeting on, when was it, Friday, I think, that we decided we needed to bring this before the committee was because there were 2 additional ones added. They're not new either, but they were added to the 5, and it was felt that we, before bringing it to the CAC, that we'd like to get the committees, at least have the committee aware of it, and make sure there was no objection. Yes, these things have been identified before. All we're trying to do is make sure we do everything we can to get the money to get these things fixed.
I understand that, but what I'm trying to, I've worked very closely with the chief as a public safety liaison, who wasn't at the meeting about the safety of roads. Anyway, I've worked very closely with him to do the abstracts that give the accident and the death data that we've sent to our state legislators, that we've attempted numerous times to meet with the state about, to get some assistance on those roads. Not in any of those cases did I see any recommendations for improvement. So have you guys discussed recommendations on what can be done on 50, as an example?
The first step is to identify these as problem areas. Now, that has to be done first. Now, what we've also done is we have discussed possible recommendations, but we haven't codified anything. The first step is to get this in the system and identify these areas. So that's what we're proposing to do at the next meeting. And the reason for this also is that meeting is coming up on the 13th. So we wanted to make sure we had that, you were aware of it before the 13th.
So now
Ms.
the,
Gatto, there is, let me just tell you one thing. There is, I don't know whether in your past actions with the state legislature or anyone else, but the South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization is just what it is, a planning organization. And the committee that we serve on is the Citizens Committee,
Understood.
which allows any citizen coming off the street to ask for studies and help and so forth. There is a group within the South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization that does safety studies, and the safety studies are financed by the federal government. So when that issue comes into us, for instance, Route 50, I believe we also have Route 40 and Route 40 and New York Avenue.
Yep,
And
also
we have
on
a
our
couple
list.
of others that we have on there that the police has identified as potential safety hazard or safety areas. Also at, I guess it's Foreman Road and Route 40 where the high school is, or the grade school, David School. So we have put these together, and they will come to us on the 13th. We will then we will vote to send it on. That's all we do.
Okay.
We accept it and we send it on. It'll go to the safety organization within the planning organization. They will review it. They will decide if they want to do a study, and they will get back to the Township Committee and to whoever has asked for it. So if you ask for it, it's something extra that maybe you have not explored in the past, and it's something that a lot of people, a lot of municipalities have no idea of how some of these federal funds, this is the Federal Highway Safety Act, and we hope maybe that there can be some money for Hamilton Township, as well as the other 4 counties that we represent. So I'm hoping that you will consider supporting this.
I believe me, for any resources that we can have in support of trying to get these issues resolved, because they are important,
Absolutely.
I'm totally in favor of. However, you're proving my point about having this added as a late agenda item that I now need to make a decision on tonight without any background information other than what you just presented. Because Rodney mentioned that the intent is to identify areas as safety concerns and move it along. You initially said it's about seeking grants, and the written thing we have says about input and recommendation for improvement. So do you see where I'm saying?
I
Like,
understand.
let's be clear on our approach here before we're voting on things.
Well, I
That's
think-
all I'm
I think
saying.
maybe we could have gotten a little bit more information, except for the fact that we met right before the Easter holidays, and we talked about it, and Mr. Kishard led the meeting. And our meeting is on the 13th of April, which is before your next meeting. So we're not asking for any approvals. We're just saying, these are the recommendations that have come in to us, or is supposed to come in to us, hopefully. We can turn it over to the safety committee, let them, it doesn't cost anything, there's no cost involved here whatsoever, and we'll try to get an examination of the potential safety hazards, and they'll do a report. If nothing else, they'll do a safety report, and they'll come back, and they will follow through, and they will most likely follow through with the mayor and township committee, because it'll be coming from you folks. So, as I said before, any citizen, yourself as a Laureldale citizen, can come to our board and do the same thing. You don't have to be a township government, but this will help a little bit, because you folks will send it to us, and we'll push it and try to get at least a grant for a study. So,
Mr. Campbell, I have a question. The reason for it going on the late list tonight was to be an authorization to submit a list of projects. That list is not fully developed yet, or it is finished?
Oh, I think it's
No,
just
Rodney.
the,
If I may clarify this, there's nothing new on this list.
Thank you.
We have a meeting on the 3rd, all right, you're all aware of it, you know about it, but I did not want to submit this to the CAC without making sure that you're aware of it. I don't want you to read in the paper that this list of stuff was put in front of the CAC without your knowing about it. So that's the reason we're bringing it before you, is to make you aware of it. You all know about these, and we have submitted things before about these. So these
absolutely.
aren't new.
right.
It's not really a big deal. We just want to make sure you know, so that before the meeting, you don't read about it in the paper without knowing about it.
And
That's all.
and I appreciate that as well. But as I'm saying, what was listed here was, number one, an authorization, which is an approval. And number two, for projects requiring input and recommendations for improvements. And then Mr. Campbell got up and said it's for the purpose of seeking grants. So that's why I was confused. And that's it.
Well, certainly grants can be for improvements,
I
they can
think
be
it's as
safety,
clear as
they
mud
can be
now.
for a number of reasons.
Well, to wrap this up, if you folks just send it to us, we'll give it to the safety people, to the committee. They'll take a look at it, and again, it costs nothing, and you might get some good results from it. So I hope that you would support it. If not, any citizen from any part of the town, I did have a citizen call me some months ago and complain about the grass on Route 322 in front of Walmart was about 6 foot high, and the cars couldn't get through there. The county planning officer, Mr. John Peterson, I called him on the phone and I said to him, "What do we do about this?" He says, "Well," he said, "the best thing I can suggest is for you to call the state highway department." And I called the state highway department, and the next day they were out there and cut the grass. So we cut a corner, and we got a safety hazard taken care of for you, and we just want to try to make sure that our organization is at your disposal for anything that we can hopefully get to improve the safety, the highways, and so forth in the community. So that's why I ask you to support it.
Thank you.
The next item, while we were having the meeting on the highway, I brought up one of the facts, and the fact was that I noticed on Park Road, there was some safety hazards, because I had looked at some of the safety hazards in the township myself, so that I would be more familiar with it when we have our meetings. And I did notice that, and I think, Mayor, you know about this too, the poles that are on the ground have large
Spikes.
nails and spikes sticking out of it. The poles are totally, half of, or not half of them, but a lot of them are destroyed. And if some youngster comes cruising along there, with the road. The road is deplorable condition, as you well know, and that's up to you folks to decide what you want to do about that. But I would suggest that you take some action.
They're slated to be removed, Bob.
Great. That's a
Thank you.
good thing. That's a
Appreciate
good
it.
thing. I did take pictures for you in case you wanted, but was not necessary. I would hope that you highly consider doing some repairs to Park Road. It's a deplorable condition. The last thing I want to talk about, Mr. Mayor, is, as you well know, we had a young man working with us in the Veterans Advisory Board a couple of years ago by the name of Lou Green. Lou Green, as you know, and you've been out there to the mall, this guy does an absolutely wonderful job. And for some reason or other, he stopped working for the township or stopped under the guidance of the township. We had a few talks with him. I talked to some of the members of the Veterans Advisory Board, and they were pretty much all in agreement that it would be wonderful to have him back under the auspices of the Hamilton Township Committee and the Hamilton Township Veterans Advisory Board. So I'm hoping that you will approve his working for the township, for us, and most importantly, for the veterans of our community. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Michael?
Terry Daly.
Ms. Daly?
My name's Terry Daly. I live on Lyland Lane, which is right here in Mays Landing. First, I'll say something nice before I say what I'm actually here for. The nice is, I know all of you were not on the board on the committee at the time, but several years ago, you guys had to make very difficult decisions regarding budgeting, and you laid off roughly 30% of the workforce here in the township. And I'm sure it was really horrible for those of you who had to make the decision. It was horrible for the employees it happened to, and it was horrible for the employees that are left, who are left with the work. But I have to tell you that when I get my tax bill, I thank you. Because let me tell you something, the bills are coming in from the schools, and now I know from the county it's like heart attack time. I'm so complimentary of whoever it was that did this, because this was several years ago that you did this, because I remember when the cuts were made, largely public works, it seemed like, and here in the building, a lot of times it feels empty when you're in here. But in any event, so now that I've thanked you for saving money, I want to ask you to spend money. Lyling Lane is off of Park Road. I have to use Park Road multiple times a day to get in and out. Deplorable doesn't begin to describe it. I have been in Central and South America, and their roads are better. I moved here in 1997, and the Park Road since then has had numerous road openings for the gas company, drainage, water, sewer, all of which are necessary. And there's patch on patch on patch on patch on patch. And in fact, right now, they've got an unbelievable mess going on at Tanglewood and Park, where you have to go
Metal
down
plate.
a hole to get across to continue on Park. Then the MUA, which is a wonderful thing, replaced water pipes, and that created more of a mess on the road. So all I'm asking for is, please put it in the budget to repave Park Road. It's a little road. I know that seems like not a big deal to you guys, but it's amazingly busy for such a little road. To me, it's a hazard for the cars. You tend to either drive on the hump of the road, or you drive, if there's no one coming the other way, you drive in the other lane, oncoming lane, anything. It's like an obstacle course, trying to drive the road so you don't get your fillings knocked out your teeth. And walking it is a hazard. There are no sidewalks on Park Road, and I realize that's a non-starter. That would be like too much money. I'm not asking that. But because of the fact there are no sidewalks, there are constantly pedestrians, including senior citizens like me, walking on that road. And it's an ankle breaker at this point, walking on the road. And bicyclists seem to have like given up on the road. I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they turn around and go out 13th and Tanglewood. So if you can, I realize you need to let the work they've done settle, and whatever they're doing at Tanglewood and Park, they need to finish, but if you would please put that into your capital budget or however it is that you do it, if you could do it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, Michael.
Jim Link.
Mr. Mayor, Township
evening.
Committee, thank you for time tonight to address this situation on Park Road as
Terry,
Ms. Daly had mentioned. But I'm here also to ask that you consider whatever it takes to get that road fixed. Park Road has been in need of repair for at least 20 years that I know of. Having moved here 20 years ago, it was one of my first impressions. When I understand that in 2010, it was put officially on the road list. But for a lot of various reasons, it was always moved off of that list as a priority, and other roads throughout the township were fixed, and that's fine. But right now, after the MUA had ripped it up, and again, the ripped up parts that were already ripped up and repatched and patched again, the road is in abominable shape. All right? I'm going to look at it from a different point of view. I have a residence on Park Road at 676, as you know. My wife and I also have a business at 763 Park Road. And that business has been there. We're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. Pardon the plug. But we have a lot of people that come in from all over the region. A lot of people come down 13th Street in Tanglewood. That's fair enough. But a lot of people who know the area come up through Park Road. And, you know, when we're at the rink, we have people telling us, man, what are you guys doing around here in this township? How come they can't fix the road? It's a terrible impression. But that's just our skaters. And as you know, the Merchants Association is going to be having the hometown celebration. A lot of people coming in from all around the area because it's a success. It's a wonderful thing. Puts Hamilton Township and Mays Landing proper on the map. Okay? But, man, I would rather not have to address those people's impression of my neighborhood because of that road. And I would really like them to come back next year with their friends. Not only that, the rowers. Right now, I mean, Lake Lenape is a great place for rowing, and you know it's been a big, venue, a major venue for all high school rowing teams. But there again, you got a lot of people who know the township. They come through the back way. They come Park Road. And it's an abomination. It's an embarrassment. So I would hear, along with others of my neighbors for whom I'm not speaking, may have the same concerns. As far as budgeting is concerned, I think you got to find the money. You're talking about paying down deficits, and that's all a good thing. I applaud, like Terry did, the fact that you had to make a lot of hard decisions, okay? And then you're also making those hard decisions in determining what services you're not going to pay for in the following year by paying down the debt, choosing to pay down the debt. But as homeowners, you know you're in debt. If you got a mortgage on your house, you're in debt. You got a mortgage on your car, you're in debt. Everybody in this room, if they're in that situation, they have debt. Well, yeah, we want to pay that down. But a lot of us just can't reach in our pocket and pull out our money to pay off our mortgage. It's okay. But we plan for it, okay? That's what I'm asking you guys to do. Deferred payment or deferred maintenance, like if you have a hole in your roof, you're going to fix your roof. You might not have the money, but you go borrow it. You got to fix the roof. Well, you got to fix Park Road, okay? I'm asking you, take a look at that budget you're talking about tonight. Take a look at your bonding issue, whatever you have to do, because frankly, unpaid maintenance is a debt as much as money, okay? Because you're going to have to spend the money, and you put it off long enough, and you're going to be spending more. I don't think anybody has a problem with that. Just a matter of materials, labor, and everything else isn't getting any cheaper. So I'm asking for myself as a taxpayer resident and a taxpayer business person, please, fix the road. Don't put it off. It's been put off way too long. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next, Michael.
Really quick, Jim, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Have you read the capital budget that's up for public hearing tonight?
Just a smattering.
Okay. So did you note that there was $500,000 added in addition to our normal capital budget amount for road improvements?
That's fine.
And we're still paying down debt?
I didn't know it said it was for Park Road. If
It doesn't
said it's for Park Road, I wouldn't have even been here tonight. Thank you.
So,
Next. Thank you, Jim. Michael?
Frank? Is there Frank?
Mayor,
Good evening.
Township of Hamilton
good
Committee.
evening.
My name is Frank Craig. I have businesses here in Hamilton Township. But after hearing your problems, I'm going to run home to Weymouth. I thought we had problems. We don't have problems. The reason I'm here is that, unfortunately, nobody from Hamilton Township comes to our mayor's meetings. And they discuss and make very important plans. And I just wanted to be sure that Hamilton Township is aware that what they're going to do, the county is going to take over the central dispatch. Maybe you're aware of it, maybe you're not. That means you're going to lose your central dispatch here. Now, Roger, you can shake your head no, because I did too. But I'm a lone person talking to Denny Levinson. He said, you can keep it, but on your tax bill from the county, your cost is going to be in there. So you're going to be paying twice for the same service. Why do I say this? Because I think it'd be nice if some people from Hamilton Township came out and joined me in opposing this. They've already looked at the building at Washington and I guess the old Bell Telephone building on Washington Street. They're looking at that to pick up and make the central dispatch.
In Pleasantville.
In Pleasantville.
What happened to the land that they were getting out at Stockton?
It's a good question.
See, you have to understand something, and I appreciate your comments. Ever since I can remember, they were going for central dispatch. We waited and we waited. We invested over $300,000 in bringing our dispatch center up to the state of the art. That investment has been very well worth it. The work that they do there is outstanding. The lives that they save, the protection they give our police department, and I even brought the county in here to tour our dispatch center, and they were impressed with it. You know what they said to me? We'll buy it from you. I don't believe they're going to get going that quickly on it, even though it's been in the works and it's been a plan. They've talked about this for at least 25 years that I know of. We couldn't wait for them any longer. All right? And I hear what you're saying, and I understand what Denny is saying, and they've been talking about that along with countywide assessment, which is another issue they talked about. We'll wait and see what happens. In the meantime, we're protecting our community and our residents and trying to give them the best that we can.
No, I appreciate that, Roger. I feel the same way. What I was trying to convey to the Township Committee, that a lot of times I'm over there as a lone person. And if we could get people from Hamilton Township and other townships that are going to be impacted by this to stand and give an adverse opinion, it would be helpful. I don't see anybody. That's one of the reasons I'm here. The other thing is you mentioned about the county-wide assessment. That is going ahead. It's a 4-year plan. And they're going to start, and they'll take every certain area that they want. They're going to have assessment by the county assessors. At the end of 4 years, every community in Allegheny County will be at 100%. And that's going to eliminate a lot of future work. I just wanted to say that to you. The other thing is, we're talking about the road problems you have here. I can tell you that the road in front of Gaskell Park is going to be repaved shortly.
River Road?
And River Road is going to be taken care of. And Jerry Del Rosso, he's the one that schedules that. And I think you can see it in about 4 weeks to get started, weather permitting. And that's going to be a plus. Amy, I see you're in public safety somehow.
I'm the liaison, one of the liaisons.
So you're not a flag person out there with a big smile.
No.
You know, we have a project going on in Route 50 that they're going to start repaving shortly. You've seen the signs.
Yep.
In Weymouth Township, we've tried to join with Hamilton and get them to put sidewalks in, at least on one side. Perhaps with the size of your community here and a little push, you might be able to get them to do the sidewalks here. Sooner or later, we're going to lose quite a few people. They just walk on there, and there is room for sidewalk. So it would be good if we could do it all one time. Thank you very much.
Appreciate your
Thank
comments.
you.
Thank you. Michael?
Oh, yes, Mike Donato.
at 688 Park Road, and I had some things to say, but I guess the question is in order first. What is the plan for Park Road?
Good question.
Is there an answer?
Well, we'll wait till everybody's done speaking, and then what we'll do is we'll let someone, we've invited someone from the MUA here tonight to let us know when and what they're going to continue to do on that roadway to at least put it in a position. There's a lot of work that has to be done on that roadway, an exceptional amount, especially with curbing. They got to do curbing, they got to do major reconstruction, and you're not far off the dime, Jim. You know it. You sat here. You understand it, as I do. The difficulty is that putting it off over the time, they had to connect the drainage in the situation down around Tunney and 13th Street. Once they corrected that, there was always something else that came up. And, you know, many years ago, when I was in another position, every time I finished a major roadway, a utility company came in and ripped it up. And every day my phone would ring, and people would say to me, "Why do you allow that?" Well, this time we tried to make sure that all the work has to get done. The plan is when all the work is done. We don't know when it's going to be finished yet, okay?
Is there still more underground work that has to be done?
Well, I'm not totally cognizant of where they have to finish up there. I don't know, Bob, whether you know or not. I don't think we know here. See, that project is done completely by the MUA.
But Steve Blankenship said it was going to be done 2 weeks ago.
Well, we'll let the chairperson speak, Judy,
Okay.
okay? But
Right.
to answer your question, the plan is, once it's done, the road has to be scoped out. Now, there are people that want to see sidewalks going there, too. Sidewalks may not be the answer, because if you decide you're going to put sidewalks in, that could delay the projects longer because it becomes a drainage issue, and you have to wait for certain approval process. So that's going to take a longer time. Hopefully, when they're finished, there'll be, the engineer will be able to work on that roadway, spec it all out, and then hopefully we can go out to bid. I don't know whether it's going to be by the end of this year. It depends on what we hear.
And if I just might add, the sidewalks, we know about the sidewalks. We've discussed that quite a bit, and we believe we'd like to see sidewalks there. The problem is, the sidewalks are expensive. He mentioned the drainage problem, but you don't want to do the road and then do the sidewalks, because that ends up costing you considerably more. So what really should be done is the road should be fixed, the drainage should be fixed, and the sidewalks done at the same time.
I understand the drainage is really almost totally done, as far as my conversation. When we went around looking at the roads, we only have an area right there at the cove to correct a drainage problem. And I've done a lot of research on this. I feel as though we have to move forward on this, make a decision, and allocate some money in the capital budget for it. We have waited a long time for this to be done. And, you know, if Steve Blankenship has not told me everything, maybe he hasn't. But you're saying that he's going to give a report tonight?
He's not here. It'll be done by, if I'm not mistaken, it'll be done by the chairperson.
Okay. All right, well, I've had private conversations with him, and as far as he was concerned, all the work on Park Road was done. We made sure that the gas companies came out and did their work. You know, I think that we really should now get it from Steve when and where this is going to be done, because this has been a 5-year process. We started in 2010 on the front of the list, and we were told the MUA, this water pipe that had to go down Park Road. So we went to 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, and now it's 2015. They've done their work. It's time for us to do the road.
Well, I think, Judy, had we paved it before that, you would have been looking at a beautiful paved job with curbing, that the road work would have all been a patch quilt.
I don't disagree with that.
And I do understand what you're saying, and I'm not here to argue with you. The gentleman asked a question, and I said, when I know, and look, I don't make the decisions. You got 5 people up here. 5. We have equal weight. I just happen to serve as the chairperson, okay? So at that point, we'd love to get some more definitive answers, and maybe if the contractor didn't leave the roadway in that particular shape, and I agree with you, I lost a filling 2 weeks ago riding that road. I like to blame it on him, but it didn't happen, but I joked with it, but it does occur. And I know people have been riding over to the left side of the road, and it's a hazard, and there's a lot of situations, and there's a lot coming, too. You couldn't pave that before Hometown Celebration. You couldn't pave it before the Wine and Food Festival, because the job will probably take, I would say, Bob would say, 4 to 5 months
It'll probably take 60 to 90 days.
to get, yeah. So when you're looking at that, there's a time frame in there, and you're right about the number of cars coming down that road, Jim. Okay? We're very concerned about it.
I personally don't care about the sidewalks. I think I feel the pain a little more than most people. In December, I seriously injured my back to the point on a week from Tuesday, I have to have a level 3 fusion in my spine. They're fusing 3 of my, whatever those things are called together. And I can't say that the Park Road caused that injury, but it aggravates that injury. Every time I hit a bump, all winter long when we were driving up and down that road when it was in shambles, I just kept telling myself, rumor had it that once everybody was done in the road, it was going to get fixed. So I just kind of gritted my teeth and got through the winter, expecting, hopefully in the springtime, the road was going to get smoothed. Obviously, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I'm a manager at the Wawa by Harding Lakes, and this topic comes up for conversation, and everybody says the same thing. You just drive on whatever side of the road isn't dug up. And that's obviously a safety issue. And you don't want to tell people to do that, but it's the only, for me, especially with my back in the shape it's in, it's unfortunately what I have to do. And I guess the public works could answer. I was under the impression that when they were finished with the work, it would be in the condition it was before the work started. Is that correct? And I think we can agree that I hope nobody signed off on that saying that that was done, because obviously it's in shambles still.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed. And thank you for your comments, and I hope your back operation is successful. Who else, Michael?
Sean Donaldson.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor and the the committee for Hamilton Township. I am a resident. I also live on Park Road, and I'm going to go beyond. It's horrendous. It's third world. When I come down there, I lose my religion because I have to dodge from left to right. I have to see if there are pedestrians, if there are cars coming. Every time I go down that road, I get upset. I get upset because I know what it means for my family to pay the taxes to live here. I get upset because when I go to Pleasantville, I say, am I in Hamilton Township? On Dowdy Road? Am I on Delilah Road? Am I in the same place? It's the same kind of road. And it's ridiculous for us to have to put up with it. When you said to me, next year, I couldn't even fathom it, because it's just been that long and that bad, and now it's the worst it's ever been. We have a triathlon. Are we canceling that? Are you saying that people are going to run on that road and ride bikes on that road this summer? I don't know what you're thinking. I know there's red tape, but this is beyond unacceptable. I wouldn't be here. I have other things to do. We all do. But just to fathom the idea that we're going to have to tolerate this until 2016 is beyond unacceptable for the community.
If I can ask you, where did you get that information?
What?
That this is getting paid in 2016?
I heard from Mr. Silva there wasn't anything in the budget.
No, I don't think that's what you said.
No, I said it was planned for 2016, once they got done.
Right.
And I'll go back on the record. Had the contractor who was working there left it in a condition that we thought it was going to be, you could leave your windows down and keep your religion, okay? And I understand exactly what you're saying, so, it's...
So I'll just leave here and drive down there. and drive back.
We've all been down there.
I've been down it. I go down it almost every day.
So, I mean, what is the contractor doing? Is he getting any, are we getting any money back for the crappy job he did?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's not us doing the work currently, it's the MUA. So I think the committee person, or the
And
head
Steve-
is,
and
and
Steve
I
is
see
here.
Mr. Blankenship, I guess are gonna discuss what's happening on the MUA side of the house.
Yeah, because we really need to know the plan. I haven't heard any plans, I haven't heard any specifics. I've just heard it'll get done whenever it gets done. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael? That's it? Look, everyone, over the last couple of days, I used to say, every time we talk about Hamilton Township, the first comment out is it's New Jersey's largest municipality. Living in a municipality of this size, approximately 115 square miles, carries with it a great responsibility. It's not only a heavy burden in terms of trying to provide public safety from the point of view of police, fire, rescue, but it's also a burden when you think about the number of roads that you're looking at, the number of subdivisions where we, have to plow roads, plow streets when it snows. When I looked at the snow plan this year, I said to Brett Knoll, who's the department head of Public Works, it's a great plan. I like it. I wrote one like that for the county years ago. I said, but I have one problem. You don't have enough people to do all the roads as quick as you should be getting them done. Well, that's the same problem that we face here in the township. And I know we all pay taxes, and I can appreciate that. What scares me more than anything is I opened up the paper again today. There were 10 pages of sheriff's sales. Weeks before, it was 18, it was 20, was 22, was 18. We probably went over 100 classified sections in the press over the last 6 or 7 weeks of sheriff's sales. The principal source of revenue in this township, believe it or not, is real estate taxes. And if you look at that from the point of view, if you're wondering who's going to be left and what's going to be left to pay those taxes, it creates quite a burden for everybody. So whether we're talking about central dispatch, countywide assessment, every one of those plans has an impact on the thinking of committee and this township. We all are very cognizant about the fact that the biggest problem we face is sustainability. Being able to sustain our community in these tough, difficult times is something that you want to be very careful with. And as you could see on committee, we get along, we debate, we disagree, the vote happens, and when the vote is over, it's over, and we do what we're supposed to do. It presents a very difficult challenge. No one ever thought that when Park Road was ripped up, it would be like this, because I was fooled. When they finished the drainage problem at the end by Tunney, and they put that patch in, it was beautiful, wasn't it, Jim? We didn't have that. And it seemed to correct a lot of the water problems there. Stuff that Bob talked about with the telephone poles being removed, and they are, and we just had to wait till we can get to a point we have. And yes, I understand your comments about when we had a reduction in personnel. As painful it was, we have more people trying to do, less people trying to do more work, and it's very difficult. We feel it all over the township. The difficulty comes now is we have to wait on an authority to finish that roadway. In the condition that it's in now, and they don't have to hear it from me because I met with them 2 weeks ago along with Mr. Jacobs, Mr. Smith, and the head of Public Works. We talked about the condition, and they understood, and I don't think they're overjoyed with the condition of the road. Because usually when the MUA gets done a job, just like they did the one in front of the post office, if many of you saw that, that roadway was left very, very smooth and very drivable, and you don't lose your religion on those streets, and I'll remember that one too, because I like that statement. But when we look at everything, we have to get the story of what they're going to do. Keep in mind that on every job, the contractors are required to post a performance bond, okay? And I heard someone say earlier, don't release the bond. Don't let them out of their obligation. And that's pretty much what we want to do, is find out how much more of that obligation is going to be satisfied to a point at which, when they're finished, then we can take a look at the road and see what we are left with, okay? And probably, if it is like it is now, we got our hands full, okay? So at that point, I think in all fairness to all those of you that live there, and the rest of the community, because we've got a lot of roads throughout this township. I think, I know Judy and Rodney were out the other day with the engineer and Mr. Jacobs, looking at roads in parts of the township that we've been trying to catch up with the roads. They got craters in those roads where you lose more than religion. You could lose the vehicle you're riding in, and you could lose probably other things if you're not paying attention, because it's that dangerous. So the obligation is great. And yeah, do you want to spend money? I don't want to spend it like they did in Atlantic City, where they can't meet their income, where their debt payment every year is $40 million. Sure, we talk about paying down our debt. We did that so that it puts us in a better position, so that when we go out to bond, because we have a good bond rating, thanks to committee. These are good times for borrowing money, thanks to our bond rating and timing. But we also are very cognizant of the fact that we don't want to load up our budget with debt payment, because it doesn't give us an opportunity to divert that money into capital projects. So I think from that point of view, it makes sense. Don't forget, anything we invest in capital, we want to have a useful life of 10 years or more. So I think from that point of view, I would like to hear from Mary Jo Couts, who's the chairperson of the MUA. I noticed Steve Blankenship came in, and thank you, Steve. Could the two of you please just fill us in on where we stand, so that we can give some semblance of understanding for the people who live on Park Road, and they understand what your intent was and how you really want to leave that road till where we take it. Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, Steve Blankenship, Executive Director of the Hamilton Township MUA. Park Road is part of the water main project, $2 million plus water main project that we've done throughout the township. On that road, basically the contractor is not complete with his work yet. He has done some of the work from Lenape down to about Lake, but from Lake to Tanglewood, he still has a lot of work to do. You mentioned about Atlantic Avenue and Park Road. Why is it different? Well, the reason it's different is because Atlantic Avenue was never going to be on the paving plan in the near future. That road was in good shape, so we came back and we paved it accordingly. Just like you talk about good stewards, watching our money, and how do we operate, on that road, we were under the impression that that road was going to show up on the township's road program at some time in the future. So we had to go in, along with the gas company and other people, to do utility upgrades, just like you talked about sustainability. Part of what we did there was part of our sustainable plan at the MUA. We borrowed that money under a New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust loan, where we were able to get a loan for 20 years at slightly less than 1%. So that's almost like paying as you go, but we have to make those payments over 20 years. We are somewhat limited in how we can get reimbursed for certain paving items. And on this road, as we talked about before, what we said is we weren't going to do the same thing, because if that road is going to get paved in the near future, i.e. 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, how much do we want to spend and then have it all be ripped out again?
Absolutely.
So, we all hear about taxes don't go up. We hear about we don't want rates to go up. So that's what we were trying to do. So the answer that you're going to have out there, is it going to be perfect? Is it going to be smooth where people can drive 50 miles an hour? No, it's not going to be. I'll be right up front with that. But can we get it to where, can it last for 2 years under the 2-year maintenance bond for the contractor at the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit that's posted down there? I think we can come up with something pretty close. So with that, we were a little disappointed. We had hoped that the contractor would have done the work that they needed to do by last Friday. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We did meet with the contractor this afternoon. He will be mobilizing again, depending on what happens this next couple days. It's supposed to rain, so I'm not sure what's going to transpire. But by the end of next week, supposedly he's supposed to finish up the rest of the section from Tanglewood down to Lake Drive. And those were areas that we walked this morning and basically said that we weren't happy with the condition that the road was in. They're also working on the rocker gutter that's at the edge of Tanglewood and Park Road. We had to take sections of that out as part of the water main that we had to install. And with that, he's doing that in 3 pieces because he doesn't want to close the road. Then the skating rink gets closed. A lot of people have to drive way out of their way. So he's got one part done. Hopefully at the end of this week, he'll get another section done. and then the following week, he'll have the third section done, and that'll be done. As we talked about with the township and with you, Mr. Mayor, was we said when we were all done, we would come back, meet with you, the township administrator, the engineer, we'd bring our people, and we'd walk the road and see where we were at that time. So that's where we're at. Unfortunately, the contractor didn't finish like we had thought at the end of the week, where we would then have the meeting that we talked about. But at this point, I'm looking at 2 weeks weather conditions, and if the contractor is able to complete the work that he needs to do. The project itself is done. This work does need to be done. He has some other punch list items. We have money that we withheld, and we still have the maintenance bond once he comes off the performance bond. And as we've talked about amongst ourselves, that's a 2-year maintenance bond. So whatever we finally agree out there, he has to maintain that for the next 2 years. And that's where we're at.
So at this
But-
point, does he understand that the roadway is not the way it should be?
Not satisfactory.
Yes, and I think because basically, I think out there, he said he was going to do more than what he originally planned on that section from Tanglewood down to Lake.
What happened to the idea of combining monies from the MUA and from the township and coming up with a solution for actually paving that instead of having a 2-year moratorium, another 2 years?
Oh,
Well,
I
not,
wasn't-
No, he
It's
didn't
not a
say 2 years.
moratorium.
not a moratorium, but what is it, a maintenance?
Maintenance.
But the
Yes.
flip side is, basically, I think the understanding was that once the utilities upgraded what they needed to do on that road, we don't design the road. That's the township that designs the road. So the township needs to come up with a design as to what they want to do there. Because as you know, the curbs along that road are not in the greatest shape for the bulk of that road. You did address the one stormwater issue at Tunney and Rundle, and
That's
that
been done.
alleviated a lot of things. But there may still be other issues that, depending on what you do with that road, you will have to do stormwater analysis to say, are there other stormwater issues that you need to do before you pave that road? And then finally, you have to come up with, what's the crown of the road gonna be? What's gonna be the profile of the road? So, I think we've tried to do our part. In the past, we had more money, but just like you are trying to, sustain yourself and not raise rates, we had cash that we spent on a lot of capital projects. We've donated money, as requested to the township to help with their financial issues. Right now, on the water side, our utility's pretty much out of money. We don't like to be that way, but unfortunately, we have to be sustainable too. And so if we have to give more money, then we have to raise our rates too. So what it really comes down to is, we need a plan in place to go forward. And, if there's something that you want to ask us to do, like you have in the past, typically you've sent that down to us and our board has looked at that. If that's something that you want to do in the future, we can take another look at that at that time. But what we've done is, we've tried to do what we can do based upon the assumptions that we made when we started that project.
Well, one thing that I've noticed is where wherever you put the new gizmo to read the sewer and the water, the water meter, okay, every one of those curves are destroyed.
Well, not every one of them.
No, 10 out of
Probably
12.
some there, but at the same time, what we've talked about is, what do I butt up against? So do I put 5 feet of new curb in and then have all the curb around it falling apart? And then if you walk that line, like you said, that's what you have out there.
Combining resources. I don't know, can they put headers in there instead, or?
To combine resources, we have to be on the same page to go out for the project. Because I can't do I can't do 5 feet of curb here, and then you come back later, because you're gonna wind up ripping all that curb out when you go to redo the road.
I don't know.
Steve, do you envision the work that he's going to come back and do where that roadway will be smoother?
Yes. Will it be perfect? No.
I mean, the road was, hasn't been done in 20 years, so it has its share of little bumps and bruises, so to speak. Now you put all that blacktop in there, and it's, so I don't know how they can really fix it.
Mrs. Link, again, the 20-year aspect of the project, we met with the mayor last week. I called a meeting when the residents were indeed very upset, as we are, because the contractors, got a little held up because of the weather. We walked the road, we walked today. Steve called the contractor out today. I agreed with the mayor, and I agreed that After the contractor comes back and does the road again, we want the mayor and Mr. Jacobson and Bob to come out and inspect it again, and if it's to their satisfaction, fine. If not, then we'll meet again and come up with a solution that not only is amicable for us in the township, but will satisfy the residents that live on that road. And that's where we are right now. And
Well-
again, the weather's gonna be a factor, and we can't predict, but they're calling for rain this week, so it's gonna drag it into next week. But Mr. Mayor, again, I will be in touch with you when they're finished, and we'll walk the road.
But my point is, we've had 5 years of looking at that road, looking at the crown, looking at the curbs that have been there since 1937, and we have come up with nothing as far as what the possible drainage problems were going to be, what is going to be entailed there. I mean, where was the plan to begin with? Where was the plan? Did we put any monies aside, knowing full well that if we had to put curbs in, that would be a very costly process? Where do we start putting that money aside in 2010? I know, I had the list of roads that were done already in this community from 2010 to present time, and there were 40 roads or partials of roads that were done. So we have been working on this. We've had over $100,000 last year for road projects, and we've been spending money on the roads. But my question is, where was the plan for Park Road?
Well, I think, Mr. Mayor, if I could, Judy, just to maybe take a step back and understand the whole paving process. So first step is allotting the money in our capital budget, which is coming up for public hearing in our next meeting. As you know, we've made it a priority to put aside, in some cases, $1 million road programs because of the amount of roads that need, the amount of work that they do year after year after year, and you just mentioned the facts there. So this year, every year we keep the capital budget at a stable $1.5 million. Why? Because we have to put a down payment on that capital budget in our operating budget.
Right.
So we need to keep that down payment stable in our operating budget so that we can continually plan for it. This year, we took it up another $500,000 because we do have the money to put that extra down payment in for a one-time bump in the capital budget, which is going to be dedicated to road improvements, the $500,000. That is what is in the capital budget presentation. If you're interested, it's on the website.
But is that going to be enough to do Park Road?
Can I finish?
Yeah, but I still want you to go around back to Park Road. Is that going to be enough for Park Road?
Let me finish my point here, because, well, my point is, so first you need the money. So we'll approve the money via the approval of the budget at our next meeting. After that, you need a plan. We have, as the township, a pavement management plan that has been in existence for at least as long as I've been on township committee, which has been the last 8 years. The pavement management plan goes through, takes an inventory of all of our roads in the township, the initial condition when the plan was put together, how many homes are on that road, how many businesses, how many trips, how many cars. There are dozens of factors, and maybe Mike can help me list a couple more, but dozens of factors that kind of rate the road or rank the roads as part of the pavement management plan. Then those roads get put into that prioritization order. And every year, we take a look at, here's the budget that we have, what's next on the list based on that prioritization across the entire township, and how do we want to use those funds? Is it a complete road overhaul that we have to do? Is it top paving that we have to do? Is it curbing? Is it siding? Section paving? A year or two ago in Harding Lakes, the roads weren't as much as an issue as the intersections were. So we decided to dedicate the funds toward doing a numerous amount of intersections rather than paving one road. So we're always trying to look for the highest and best use of those monies based on the pavement management plan and that prioritization. I know you went out and rode the roads in Mitzvah, which are also next on the list, which are deplorable.
Well, there's about 7 of them that were already paved, and I saw them.
Okay.
Okay, they're at the end of Melvin Newton Boulevard, where there is a burnout house, okay, and a long stretch of bippity bumps, okay? It appeared to me as though that road led to nowhere once you made a left-hand turn. I'm not saying that that should not be done, but I'm saying that we have done a lot of roads in Mizpah. We have done quite a few roads in Mizpah.
Well, my point that I'm trying to make, with, again, being interrupted, is that there are roads that need to be taken care of everywhere. My neighbors, I hear it constantly about Holly Street. Holly Street is horrendous. It is also part of our emergency routes. It is a major throughway for our fire trucks. They go down there, and if they hit a pothole, now we're destroying a $500,000 engine. So these are all of the components that go into a pavement management plan to figure out where do we dedicate our limited resources next. Everybody is crying loud because we all have our own problems in our own areas of the township. So the question now is, once we get this money approved, what's next on the list? It's my understanding that the Public Works liaisons will sit down and take a look at what do we want to dedicate the funds to. That is the next step in the process. It's not that we're saying it's put off. The next step is, let's make a decision on the money, and then let's talk about how we're going to spend it.
Okay, just to talk a little bit about the rating of Park Road. In 2004, the rating of Park Road was 48. Now, the lowest rating in any of these ones that I see here is 30, 36, 40, and then it jumps to 56. Park Road is right there. It's been there since 2004. Now, I understand your present plan, but I don't...
It's not my plan. It's our plan, number one, and number two, in addition to the factors that we discussed, we also talk about what are the utilities doing. That is why it has been put off since 2010.
So can't we?
Well, that may be a fairly large list, I don't know. But the law is, if this is adopted, it's published, it goes in the newspaper, it goes out, people are deemed to be on notice of the status of the law at the time. It's no different than a change in the zoning ordinance. If you are a permitted use, the use gets changed, you become a non-permitted use. A person buying that property should be doing due diligence to learn that. So,
Well, as...
I'm not opposed to what you're saying.
Yeah, as a representative of the people here, as people up here who are trying to see, look out for our residents, it seems to me reasonable just to make sure, or do our part anyway, to help to make sure that people that buy property, that are proposing to buy property in the area, that the real estate broker just makes them aware of the fact that there are these requirements that they have to follow. That's all.
Mr. Gouchard,
Yeah.
what I'll do is, once this is fully certified by the Pinelands Commission, I'll make sure we send something out to the County Board of Realtors.
There you go.
Yeah.
That'd be the appropriate, and also to the ones that are locally in the township too, but at least if it goes to the county board,
We're covered.
they have the opportunity to disseminate it to all their.
And I see Cheryl raising her hand,
You
but we
can't.
are in the
We're still in
progress.
the motions of vote.
Yeah.
All right, I would like to put that in the record to make sure that's done.
Not a problem.
And I would like to just make one other observation. I read the Sasdeli letter also, and I've heard comments from people, and I'm very glad to hear all the positive comments I heard here. But I would like to see, at the end of a period of time, maybe a year, to have a survey, to see the response that we get from people that have used the surface. I'd like to see I'd like to see how they're reacting to it, and what they feel about it, and where there are ways that we can make improvements. So I think that's a good idea, and I'd like to make that part of this.
Thank you.
That's something you can address over time. I think if there's any dissatisfaction with it, you're going to hear it from the local realtors. I'm sure the conversation's not going to stop. It's important to carry on the dialogue.
Well, even more than that, it's good to have a survey with an objective indication of what people thought about the process. It will help us in improving it, if there are improvements that can be made.
Rodney, let me tell you what wasn't in that letter that Mr. Sasdelli wrote, and we didn't realize that till after we reviewed it and time went by, and we found out that those people who objected to anything on the HPC were people who already started their project, had a bad taste in their mouth, and knew that when they came before us, they were going to have to either tear it out, change it, or
Interesting.
they did something wrong. So a lot of those letters that were written and the people they solicited already had a bad taste with the HPC because they didn't do due diligence. They didn't come before the commission. They didn't inquire about the paperwork. They didn't come in to see that we have handout pamphlets on fence guidelines, colors, everything they need right in the office. And that was something that came to light after that letter was written, just so you know.
Yeah, I've heard some very positive comments about the HPC. I'm happy to hear them, and I think what you're saying is that we have nothing to fear in conducting a survey. It's
Correct.
positive.
Absolutely.
I think we'll get good results. That's good. We may get some areas where we can improve. So I'd like to see us do that maybe a year into this process.
Fine. Judy, were you going to say
Yes,
something?
I was just going to mention, oftentimes when a facility gets a bad rep, or a community gets a bad rep for being really hard on the people that require historic appointments or details, one of the things I would recommend that if we were to get a grant for this, through the township, that we begin to post or, produce in the newspapers or magazines some of our beautifully restored houses that we have. That we have to promote the idea that we do have rather quaint, rather historic, and it would be a proud thing to have. And to, have maybe the press come over and cover it one a month and put it in the newspaper. Get proactive in this because we do have that, and maybe it would attract those people who are interested, as we were interested in a historic home, to become part of the team. That's,
Sounds like that Restored Methodist Church might be a good candidate for the first one.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
The only thing I'm going to say is I'm going to vote how I feel about the amendment to the ordinance, which is the topic at hand here. And I'm going to save some of my responses to some of the other things we've discussed for committee member comments.
Fine. Mrs. Anderson?
Ms. Gatto,
Yes.
Mr. Gishard,
Yes, subject to the
Mr.
comments I made.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Mrs. Link,
Yes.
Mayor Silva,
Yes,
all yes and carried.
thank you. Next item on the agenda is B, Ordinance 1786, 2015, to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank.
This is all part of our budget process.
Mike?
Yes, we don't have an immediate need for it, but in case we sold land and wanted to do a project, this would give us room to do that in the future.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak on it?
Move to close public.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Move to adopt.
And move to adopt, I second.
The motion is second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson?
Ms. Gatto,
Yes.
Mr. Gishard,
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mrs. Link,
Yes.
Mayor Silva.
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Item C, Ordinance 1787, 2015, bond ordinance appropriating $2 million and authorizing the issuance of $1,900,000 in bonds or notes of the Township of Hamilton for capital improvements or purposes authorized to be undertaken by the Township of Hamilton in the County of Atlantic, New Jersey.
So this is establishing our $2 million capital budget
Right.
program as portrayed in the presentation at the last meeting, which would include the road improvements we discussed earlier.
Right.
Yes.
Public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on it?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? It's your pleasure. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Move to adopt. Move to adopt.
Have a motion is second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson?
I didn't hear which one of you
I
seconded
think
it.
John.
Right
did.
here.
I did.
Don? Okay. Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Item D, ordinance 1788, 2015, ordinance amending Chapter 225, Article 1 of the Township Code to change the fees for use of the Cove recreational bathing area in the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic, and State of New Jersey.
This is to get rid of resident and non-resident rates, have one streamlined rate, remove the paper process, and the rate was set at a perceived break-even amount.
Correct. So public hearing, anyone wish to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
Have
Second.
a motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to adopt.
Second.
A motion is second. Any questions or comments to the motion? Mrs. Anderson?
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Okay, thank you. Item number 7, award of contracts. Award $23,400 emergency contract to Chemical Equipment Labs, Inc. for road salt in accordance with NJSA 40A11:11-6.
Do you want Mike to explain this one?
Yeah, Mike?
Sir, the co-op that we buy our salt through used its limit, went up to the limit, and it actually exceeded it. So we could no longer purchase salt at the same price we had been purchasing it earlier, and the price was going to almost double. So Brett went out and found another location to buy the salt at a price that's a little bit more, but not double. And we had to buy it, put it in our salt bins in case we needed it. So this is after the fact approval. He declared an emergency, and
After the fact.
Okay.
Okay.
yeah, it's
So which-
per the
Move to
law.
So
award.
move to award, I second.
Oh,
The motion is second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson?
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Item number 8, the consent agenda.
Move to approve consent agenda A through M.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
Just want to point out that we will be moving part of the approval needed for the South Jersey Food and Wine Festival at Lake Lenape Park on September 26th, 27th. Put that little plug in there.
There you go. Mrs. Anderson, let's have a roll call for this, please.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Item number 9, personnel. Authorize advertisement for the certified municipal finance officer position.
So moved.
Mr. Mayor,
Second.
I want to recommend 2 changes to the one that was in the packet.
Oh, okay.
One is the language that the new CFO would have to work with the auditor during the auditing process. And the second piece would be the bachelor's degree in accounting or finance, business administration, or a combination of education and experience may be substituted on a year-to-year basis. That makes it consistent with the job description.
Okay.
We could make those 2 changes.
So
I still make the motion.
motion with those changes. Did we have a second?
Second.
Yes.
And a motion is second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson, please.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes. Thank
All
you.
yes and carried.
Item B, change employment status of Cynthia Lindsay from regular full-time to temporary part-time employee status at $50 per hour effective April 18, 2015, until a replacement full-time CFO is hired and trained, not to exceed 60 days.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Let's get a roll call, Mrs. Anderson.
Ms. Scatto?
Just a quick
Yes.
comment. I'm thankful that Cindy has agreed to come back and help us out until we get a replacement, because that's very much needed.
And I'd like to say Cindy has done a wonderful job for us in the short time she has been CFO, and we'll miss her.
She
I
knows
agree.
where she's going, her plate will be full.
And she's got a full challenge in where she's going, and I'm sure she's going to set them straight. So good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, Mrs. Anderson?
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Item C, authorize $15,000 compensation prorated to Cynthia Lindsay for use of her Certified Chief Financial Officer license effective April 18, 2015, until a full-time CFO is hired.
And it's my understanding that that's required by law, that we have
I have to have a
Yes.
a CFO
Correct.
on the record, so I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Have a motion is second. Any questions or comments?
Also, just wanted to mention, sorry, Judy, that Mike did do some checking around, and the cost is commensurate with what is happening in other areas.
Go ahead, Judy.
I would just like to point out that if we were to get another CFO in 2 months, it would not be the full 15,000.
Correct.
It is prorated according to, you know,
That's correct.
The use,
the
yeah.
use,
Mhm.
yeah.
Thank you.
On an annual basis, prorated annually. Yeah.
Thank you. Roll call, Mrs. Anderson?
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Okay, number 10, approvals. March 16, 2015, regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Motion is second. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. March 16, 2015, executive session minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. C, payroll and bills totaling $866,762.40.
So moved.
Second?
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Roll call, Mrs. Anderson.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Thank you.
All yes.
Okay, number 11, reports. Mr. Administrator.
Nothing to add to my written report.
Mr. Solicitor.
Just to advise the Township Committee that I will be arguing in the Appellate Division on the 20th of April, the Timber Glen landlord registration fee ordinance attack. Typically, they don't come back with a decision from the bench, but we're
Possible.
finally at that point. And I'm sure that one of you up there is going to talk about Mr. Ravel and Mr. Ficciatola, so I'll defer.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Engineer.
Nothing to add to my written report, Mayor.
Thank you. Township Committee members. Judy?
Hi. There are a few things I'd like to make a comment about. The the Merchants Association. Do I have that right, Fred? Okay. I know it went from Mays Landing to Merchants Association. They had their first Easter egg hunt over at Memorial Park at 10 o'clock on Saturday. I was not there, but my children were there, and they said they had a great time.
Good pickings.
Yes, good pickings.
Good.
They had, you know, it was money in the Easter eggs, or no? What was?
Yeah, we had money in them, and we had tickets in them to win a basket. We put out over 2,000 eggs, and they were gone in less than 2 minutes.
Don't come, I
Murdered a
heard
kid that
John.
day.
They want ostrich-sized eggs next year so they can find them.
I propose next year that when we do the Easter egg hunt, we do something for the adults.
I'm in full agreement.
A bottle of wine.
Encouragement, right? The other thing I'd like to mention, I have a great appreciation for Atlantic City Electric today. I called them in a panic, saying half of my electricity was out at the skating rink, and we were having a skating session from 11 to 4, and they came in full regalia to, you know, fix our problem. It was an outside problem, and because they didn't want the kids to be disappointed, and I thought that was nice. I thought it was because of my power and pleasure, but I don't think so. It was because of the children were at stake, so I think that was great.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Thanks, Judy. John?
I just wanted to thank everyone for the vote tonight, the committee too. We did a lot of work on this ordinance. We really did look at it with all the angles, and we do understand, like I mentioned, that down the road it might need to be amended for something in a little way, which can be done. But the benefits definitely outweigh any negatives on this ordinance, and it's going to make a big difference on how the historic district moves forward and the main street. Thank you.
Thank you. Rodney?
I'd just like to say this was a very productive meeting today. A lot of different opinions expressed, and I think a lot of good stuff. We'd like to see more meetings like that. Just a couple of quick ones. The Atlantic County Development Effort, and that, I don't know whether that's the right term or not, but it's the one where we have a strategic planner. Well, the county hired a strategic planner, and he's been going around interviewing the public. I attended, I think it was the third one. We had one in Atlantic City over at the ACCC, and we had one, the third one was in Hamilton. I don't know, there are approximately 100 people that attended. The Angelou, he made a presentation, and we got comments from the people from the people who attended. It was a very, very good meeting. There were a lot of great ideas about the county, and I would encourage all of you to keep track of that. If you haven't filled out the survey yet, it's been mentioned before, fill it out. They'd like to hear what you have to say, and look forward to the report when it comes out in July, because I think there's going to be some good stuff in it. I just came back from New York City attending a funeral, unfortunately, and that's why I was late, because there was a tie-up on the turnpike. But let me tell you this, as I'm having driven all around the township, and not just Mitzvah, not just the center of town, but the whole township, to look at the roads here, having ridden in New York City, we could almost be proud of oh my God, the roads are terrible. I don't know how the city puts up with it. I was thankful that my car came out undamaged, but it was horrendous. So we shouldn't feel too bad.
Thank you. Good comments.
Did you
What?
Did you get towed this time?
Not this time.
this time?
Is that it, Rodney?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Rodney, I feel the same way about plowing now, that I got stuck in Tennessee during
Yeah, I remember
snow, and they don't own a plow truck or a salt truck. I will never make any comments about plowing ever again. But no, it was a good meeting, and I'm sad that George and Mark have left, actually, because I wanted to commend them for actually getting people riled up about an issue. And it caused all of us to be, I think, on our toes, and to have all the questions answered, and make sure that the diligence was done before we moved forward with something. And we don't see that on every single issue, and I'm really happy that they got involved on something. And if this was the issue that got them motivated, then I hope to continue to see them, involved on issues, because I think it was all good, positive conversation. With regard to a lot of the things that they were mentioning, and the great ideas that they had, I just want to kind of float this idea that I've floated right now with Mike and with the mayor and with John, becoming potentially a partner with me, where we maybe set a regular meeting time once a week and sit down and go through somebody's complaint to find out what happened, why, what could we do to make things better, and kind of have that continuous improvement opportunity there. And this came from one of our businesses who's trying to expand on Main Street, and some of the just questions that arose there, and potentially some inconsistencies between our offices. And also arose from just other residents that I've heard gone through planning, gone through zoning, gone through construction, maybe come to the clerk's window, and good experiences, bad experiences, but came out with some kind of question. And sometimes, and I'm sure we've all experienced it, people feel Like they'll look like they're dumb if they ask the people in town hall for some reason, so they come to you and say, hey, can you find this out? Or, I didn't want to ask, but, and I feel like it's a responsibility of ours that if somebody is asking that question, there's probably a lot of people asking that question, and we need to get it, make it easier, and inform people of those things. We've had some great suggestions come out in terms of cheat sheets and guideline checklists and things like that for some of our windows. So those were some of the things that I'm hoping to get started, just based on the couple of examples that I have, where we sit down with the stakeholders in town hall, the department heads, another committee member, and again, we look at what was the situation, what was the issue, what was the root cause, and what are just maybe one or two things we can do to make an improvement. So we're always having continuous improvement. One of those ideas, Judy, that I had was to do a service survey at every window, not just at the HPC. But, having formerly managed a call center, and you all have experienced it, if you call into a call center, push 1 if you'd like to take the survey, right? All of my employees were, their added compensation, their performance reviews were all based on results having to do with those service surveys. I don't know if we want to go to that extreme here, but from an idea of data gathering and continuous feedback loop, I do think it would be something that is a great idea.
Yeah,
So
I think so, too.
it must be the great minds thinking alike sitting next to each other over here. So those are some of the things that I've kind of floated with the mayor, if he's okay with me, just trying to get that jump started, and certainly drawing on John's experience with the Merchants Association and Main Street itself, just trying to kind of start there as a place to begin. That's one thing. We will be meeting on Friday with one of our freeholders and the county administrator on a plethora of issues. The first issue, I think, John, you're going to sit in with me on,
Right.
is to talk about the plans that they do have for downtown Mays Landing, which does include adding parking for us right in the heart of downtown Mays Landing, which is amazing. So we want to make sure that those plans are solidified. We've also talked with them about improving sidewalks, improving curbing, in conjunction with our own, just adding signs of where parking is on Main Street. Just that one simple change to start getting that ball rolling, in addition to the excellent work that our Historic Preservation Commission has done. So that'll be part of the conversation to kind of solidify their commitment to Main Street and Mays Landing. The next part of the conversation, which I think, Mr. Mayor, you are going to come in on, and John will step out, will be to talk about central dispatch. One of the things, and it's a shame Mayor Craig isn't here anymore, but I don't think it's any secret that Hamilton Township has been a very vocal opposition to centralized dispatch because of the amazing operation that we have here, in addition to the shared service that we enjoy here with Egg Harbor City, which has been a really positive thing all around for both towns and for the residents of those towns. The reason we are adamant in our opposition to centralized dispatch, in addition to the money we've already invested, is that nobody has shown us on a piece of paper, number one, the cost to Hamilton Township residents, number two, the alleged savings to Hamilton Township residents, and how it impacts the tax bill, how it impacts our budgets. How do we move forward with the 2016 budget if they are taking $700,000 out of it, based on what we are supposed to be getting from state aid that we would not be getting anymore? So we are trying to get the county to the table to put pen to paper and show us the numbers and make the business case that would persuade us to feel like it is a positive thing for our taxpayers. Until we see that, me personally, I will not support centralized dispatch. So hopefully we'll have a good conversation on that on Friday. Looking forward to a lot of good things coming there. And the final thing that I want to say is, Cindy, you are going to be missed. I know that you are moving on to a great opportunity for you. But Cindy, for those of you who don't know, she has been with us through some very, very hard times. She is a force to be reckoned with. She is a rock in the offices and for us here on Township Committee. The waves have definitely crashed against her, against some very tough obstacles, and she has held her head high and done an outstanding job, always acting with integrity, professionalism, and assertiveness. And I know sometimes, Cindy, you get criticized for that. I do too, and that's one of the things I love about you, because I appreciate that in a leader. And you are just going to be very sorely missed, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure Roger echoes it, because you've been with us, been on committee through very, very hard times. Thank you for everything you've done, and good luck.
And Rodney echoes that also, and I'm sure Judy does, and John too.
Absolutely.
All right. I have a question, Amy, on what you just proposed. You proposed 2 committees to meet with public officials, I guess, concerning improve or areas they'd like to improve. On
No, I'm
well,
not.
2, what were you proposing? Would you
I'm
clarify
simply
that?
saying, I have a complaint from, or not a complaint, again, it's just feedback from a couple of people on their experiences at various windows of ours. And all I want to do is sit down and have a conversation about it. What happened? What did we learn? What are some ideas we could possibly do to improve? That's
Okay,
it.
well, I'd like to say that I feel the same way about any member in the township that has a complaint like that. I'd love to sit down and talk to them, and I guess the other members would too, so. If that's what you meant?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
fine.
that's it.
Okay.
Glad she brought up her comments about dispatch, because never did I feel more proud of our dispatch center than when I sat during the police awards ceremony last week. I was sitting where the chief is sitting now, and they called up 2 officers, 2 EMTs, and several of the dispatchers. And they talked about someone whose life they saved. This gentleman's, what, about 45 years old? And as they were recounting the story of it, he was sitting where Ingrid is, and he stood up, and he started to applaud these people.
Unbeknownst to them.
Unbeknownst to them. And I'll tell you, it was an emotional point of the evening, and I said that alone was worth having a dispatch center in there so that they could respond. I think what we have to do, Chief, is not only at the award ceremony, we have to talk about all the good stories that come out of here, the lives they saved, the cases they helped solve. And, you know, I couldn't be more proud of our dispatch center because I understand what they're doing. And tonight, when I heard Mr. Craig talk about they're looking at another piece of property, I tried to get them into the industrial park. There's a piece of 5.4 acres ready to go with the approval thing, and all of a sudden they were going to Stockton. Now it's not Stockton, it's Pleasantville. We're in operation every day. We dispatch for another municipality. We generally have few complaints about it, and I think the way and the assistance that they provide our police officers has been outstanding, and I have nothing but the highest regard for all of them. The other thing our solicitor alluded to was the dedication out at the industrial park this past week. Judy was there along with me and probably, what would you say, 40 other people who were there to honor the service of a man by the name of Carmen Fricciatola, who served passionately on the Industrial Commission. His goal was always to beautify the entrance to that park, and he took personal pride, maybe because of his background when he had the garden center, and he said 90% of winning up a customer to come in is the way you present something, and Carmen was always passionate about that. The thing that went through my mind that day was they don't make people like that anymore. The Bob Ravells, the Rocco Policarpo, the Carmen Fricciatola, who give unselfishly of their time for 40 years or more, and the only thing they want to do is benefit the community and see it progress. They've been with that Industrial Commission from almost the beginning, and meeting after meeting, and I was fortunate for 3 years to sit next to Carmen, and there was a great fondness that grew as a result of serving with him. So I think the the ceremony, Bob, wouldn't you say, was outstanding and humbling? And
I would say that, and I would say that Bob Ravel, Carmen Fitzgerald, Rocky Policarpo are three of the most beautiful men I've ever known. So it was very fitting that that would happen. And it has always been my distinct honor to serve as the solicitor for the Industrial Commission. But those guys, they were awesome.
oh, gosh, yes. You know, and you know, as you were thinking tonight about the number of the people that were in the audience, generally it's a singular issue. Sometimes it's multiple issue that you draw in excess of a handful of people. But it's interesting now because they're coming out of the woodworks in terms, not just residents. During the week, last week, we had a chance to meet with the people from the state, from the New Jersey Business Action Center, and their whole objective is to try to help us, help businesses grow and find ways to settle in our community. And we sat down at the table, and I think one of the things they said, what do you think are some of the deterrents to people coming and opening them up business here? I said, you really want to know the answer? Soft cost and regulations. And you know that, Fred, because you're shaking your hand.
Absolutely.
And generally speaking, and I think if you talk to any business owner in the last number of years who settled in this community, they would say, do you know how much money I had invested in soft costs just to get to the point where I could begin construction? So they heard us, and I think what they're doing now, and we told them about areas that we're looking to develop, not only our downtown, and you know, the question came up tonight about the Wheaton, and Wheaton has been an embarrassment for everybody. I mean, that was an industry that grew this community. At one time, that was the backbone here. And what had happened, obviously, many of you know, was tied up in litigation. I think the litigation has been resolved. Now there's a waiting period. So yeah, is there a plan? There's a significant investment in there. Hopefully that'll come off. We also talked to them about the racetrack. Beautiful area, beautiful property, accessible. It has everything going, and they didn't realize that until they started taking notes. So hopefully there'll be some excitement that'll come to all the business owners in this community, because when they bring more people in, it benefits everybody. The other thing, I sat here tonight thinking about it, and, you know, I also sat on the MUA for a number of years, 7 years, and it's been a well-run authority. And obviously, everybody's scrambling for a few dollars. Those of us that live in this area and have water, I don't have sewers, but I have water. A lot of you who are in the central core have sewers. The problem is they're aging in place, like the Historical Society, correct? So as a result of it, it's repair time. Some are 60 years old and older. And of course, they did a massive amount of work 10 years ago when they had a video piping of all their infrastructure. And one of the things they decided to do was set a priority of how they would address all of this. Unfortunately, Jim, your street got toward the end of it, okay? Unfortunately, a lot of people say, why us, okay? But I think ultimately, many of the issues will be resolved out if we can discuss and have an intelligent conversation. Because for a conversation to be effective, both parties have to be listening. And I think we achieved that tonight. And for that, I think we're all of the nature that we've come over a hurdle that I think we'll be able to resolve. So with that, I'll open it up to the public. Does anyone wish to speak? Cheryl? And I'll let you go next, Jim. And you too, sir.
Pete.
Pete?
When you were talking about letting the public know when they're coming into Mace Landing, we have the signs that say welcome to historic Mace Landing.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there's some way we could attach something that it's the nationally registered district. That would kind of, you know, that's.
Put it up a notch.
We can do that, and you know, and obviously the goal, and what Amy would talked about one time, the goal was to have these message boards at all our volunteer centers, like all the fire departments, so that the message can be around the clock, and that you could promulgate it, okay? And that's
You are entering the national registered district or something to that effect.
fine.
That's one thing. The other thing is I want to give a little plug for the Historic Society. We're running a bus trip to Washington DC next Wednesday, April 15th. And the press had an article last week that the National Park Service is announcing cherry blossom will be between April 11th and the 14th. And
Yeah, it is nice.
Yeah, so if anyone's interested, give me a call.
Good, thank you.
Ms. Fetty, a question. Did you have a specific recommendation for the statement on the sign? Do you have any?
We have to work it out, the commission, take it to them and.
Yeah, because it'd be
I
nice.
think maybe we could somehow add something to it that people would see the sign and see they're entering a registered district. The realtors, we took pamphlets, we took to every realtor in town for them to please hand out. I don't know whatever happened, we'll probably through.
Cheryl, you understand, everyone is trying to scramble to get a small piece of what businesses could be left.
Yeah.
And I understand the realtor's position too.
Right.
They want to attract people into the community, and they want to make it as least obstruct, right, and cumbersome.
But at the same time, it's not. Because really, people want historic homes, and then there are those that don't. It's just like wanting to buy a condo or not, or live in an apartment, all different tastes.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
Thanks again. As the members of the MUA were explaining what was going on, sitting where I am here with the saying, I completely get it, okay? If there's a lesson learned here, if you don't mind me, perhaps just maybe a little advice, where I worked during the day, where Rodney worked for many years during the day is the FAA. As you mentioned, Mr. Cohen works the FAA too. And one major rule is International Standards Organization 9002, I forget which it is, Rodney, but it says, if it's not written, it doesn't get done. It must be written, and it must be reviewed by everybody. Now, when it comes to Park Road, I don't believe there's a plan. Regardless of what you said, Amy, this is the plan going forward.
I believe it because
It's
Mrs. Anderson
verbal,
takes
but it doesn't
copious
exist.
notes, and it'll be written in the minutes.
No, listen. There are
It
things
exists.
that we've
It'll be
done,
written.
Rodney, okay, and I've done in the past when I worked for the Defense Department. It's the things called PERT, right? Program Evaluation Review Technique, developed by the Navy in 1947 because they built a lot of ships. It's the other thing. They do PERT charts, Gantt charts. There are applications Microsoft has called Project. There's other computer-based planning projects or planning applications. There's an app for it, I'm sure, where you put down, on any project, you have a beginning and you have an end. Pure and simple, okay? You determine what has to be done, when it has to be done, who's going to do it, and then there's a spend plan that goes on top of it. How much is it going to cost, where are you going to get the money, when are you going to spend it, and when is it going to be done? And when the money's done, so should the project, okay? I didn't see any of that. It's not as cumbersome as you think, okay? But that's what I didn't see here. And that's what is very frustrating, because we're getting our teeth rattled out going up and down Park Road. And we say, okay, fine, we understand this. But we've been dealing with it like other people in the township and other roads for the last 20 years. Look, having sat up there, I know what you're talking about. We don't want to burden people with all kinds of costs. But you got to pay for the roof over your house when it's leaking. You got to pay for roads that aren't working. In this case, with as large a project as it is, there's no plan, okay? It seems to me that your folks that you approve and you appoint to the MUA wrecked my road. You let them do it.
Remember,
okay?
you appointed me there.
I understand, but that's my point. You guys, the Township Committee, are the beginning and the end of that project. There's nothing there to show. So I would challenge anyone up here, Rodney, if you're familiar with PERT or Gantt, Bob, maybe you know it, and other projects you do. Put a project plan together. Put the timeline, put the spend line, and then put it in front of everybody so that at least we know. If we know that it was going to start in 2010 but knew it wasn't going to end until 2016, fine. At least we know where you were, percentage to complete. Okay, what's that? Are you 10% done? You got 90% to go? We don't know. You don't know. It's a great management tool.
They use it all the time. Look, we had it at Dick
Exactly.
County when I was there, okay? But how
but
long
what
do you
I'm saying,
think the
Roger-
Gantt chart's been up for the central dispatch?
Roger, you're exactly right. That's my point. It's been done since 1947 with the Navy. It can be done here. You go to buy a Microsoft project, it takes minutes to put in data for milestones, and it comes up with the end and the cost and all that kind of stuff, and ways you can manage what's going on in between.
Thank you, Jim. Pete?
Oh, man.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Committee. My name is Pete Clemens, 1505 Malaga Road, Weymouth section. Okay, I was here, let's say November or December.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Can you hear him, Lise?
Could you speak up a little, Pete, or speak into the microphone?
Okay, and I was here November or December, I forgot what month it was. But anyway, I know Rob said they was planning on resurfacing Malaga Road a stretch. That was December.
That was phase 3,
November.
I think.
And you said they had another area too. I don't know what the other area was.
We, back in December, had bid out some milling and patching work to be done on a section of Malaga Road and also on Holly Street. At the time the contracts were awarded, the weather was not favorable to do that work. We recently had a pre-construction meeting, and we anticipate that work will get started within the next probably 2 weeks.
You said 2 weeks. And now, you said tonight that for the detour, 54 detour, that's coming down Malaga Road.
The two could not function at the same time. We could not detour the additional traffic from Route 54 onto Malaga Road if we're going to do that work. We've already discussed that. The mayor and I have had this conversation that we would have to coordinate with the work period that they're going to do the detour for Route 54 with Malaga Road. And if they are actually going to start the 10th, which was previously indicated in their correspondence, we would have to push off the work on Malaga Road till after that work was done. But the two have to be coordinated, absolutely.
Very heavy travel road.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Pete. Anyone else in the audience?
Thanks, Pete. Move to close the public portion.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Mrs. Anderson,
Oh,
Executive.
yes, my favorite speech.
your favorite thing.
Okay, here we go. Be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton that this meeting be adjourned to an executive session to discuss the following matters which are exempt from public discussion pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law. Tavistock potential litigation. 2, Glen Eyre settlement. 3, pending litigation Oprah. And 4, collective bargaining, SOA, Superior Officers Association for lieutenants. Be it further resolved, the governing body will reconvene in public session to confirm the results of the consecutive session if there is a majority consensus for action to be taken on a matter tonight.
I would just like to add that the Oprah litigation involves Mr. Sheeler.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Move what Mrs. Anderson said.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Did we
We'll
close?
I'm
we'll
too
go.
tired
We'll
to
go in the
repeat
other
it.
one.
Thank you.
Back on the record?
You ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so
Time now is 10:48. We are back in the open record in the main courtroom. Lisa went out front in the lobby and out front on the front steps. There were no public out there. When I came back in, the only one here in the public was the attorney, Tim Curzon, from the bonding company with respect to Glen Eyre. I told him that there would be a vote taken. I would tell him what the vote was, and he felt free to leave. The only items that were discussed in the executive session were the 4 items that were announced. The minutes of that executive session will be made public, at which time the confidential nature of those discussions are no longer confidential. At this time, Mr. Mayor, I would entertain a motion to approve a settlement agreement by and between the Township of Hamilton and American Southern Insurance Company as it relates to the Glen Eyre litigation. the terms of which were discussed in executive session.
It's your pleasure.
Make that motion. So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments to those motions? Mrs. Anderson?
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva? All yes and carried.
At this time, Mr. Mayor, I would ask the Township Committee to consider authorizing me to make a demand in the Tavistock litigation in the amounts set forth in the executive session without someone putting it on the record now.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments to that motion? Mrs. Anderson?
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Mr. Mayor, I'd ask the Township Committee to consider authorizing a motion, authorizing my law firm to file a lawsuit with respect to a certain Oprah request by Mr. Harry Sheeler, and to file that in the Superior Court of New Jersey, Atlantic County Law Division.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments to the motion? Mrs. Anderson, please.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
So,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.